Unfiltered. Oh, hey, didn't see you there. I'm Joe Yarbrough. I'm not the host of this show, but the two guys who are, they're not experts, but they try their best. As far as they know, everything they say is true at the time of the recording.
You're listening to the Beer History Podcast, hosted by David Totaro and Dennis Abdelhamid. Today's guest, Joe Yarbrough from Drinking and Driving and Relations Sips. And now, here are the hosts of the Beer History Podcast, David Totaro and Dennis Abdelhamid.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Beer History Podcast. I am your host, David Schweinfleisch Tartaro. With me, as always, is my beloved co-host, Dennis the Wiener Schnitzel Abdelhamid. And today, if you couldn't tell by our clever nicknames, we are going to do an episode on the history of German beer. And back with us again is our dear, dear friend, Joseph Yarbrough.
I'm the one they call when literally no one else will answer the phone.
And he always does.
I do.
I don't know which one's sadder.
It's so sad. Well, actually, I was promised beer, so
We do tend to do that. Yep, occasionally.
it's like a Michael Jackson song. Just say beer, I'll be there.
I feel like those lyrics might slightly be off, but
you know,
vaguely accurate.
feel free to fact check.
Fact check. So, yes, we're going to talk about German beer today. Germany, of course, as everybody knows, has a long history of beer-related culture. It's always been a big part of their culture. And we're going to kind of go through from the earliest evidence of beer all the way to today. And there was some really cool stuff that I found while researching that even I didn't know. And, of course, I'm not an expert, but I do know more than the average person, I suppose.
By no more than the average person, he means drink more than the average person. I do drink more than the average person, so
Sometimes.
It is very important that everybody understands that I am not an expert. I am not a historian. And this is just a learning experience for me as much as it is for everybody else. So I'm going to do things a little bit different this time because I notice every time we get like halfway through the episode and I haven't poured a beer, and usually the guest is getting cranky. So let's start off with a beer. How's that sound?
And since this is the second time I'm on the show and only 5 episodes being recorded, that the cranky guest apparently is me.
That is you.
I mean,
You're the cranky guest.
40% of the time it's me.
No, Andrea was pretty mad, I think. Where's my beer? All right, so Anger is a pretty major brewery in Germany, and this is their, let's see if I say it right, Jahrhundertort beer. You should try. I feel like you'll do better.
Is it Anger or is it Ayinger?
I think it's Anger. That's how I've always said it.
Ayinger? Ayinger?
That's how I've always said it. I know, it's like the hardest German word I've ever seen in my life. It doesn't even look German.
Jahrhundert?
We'll go with that.
Jahrhundert? That's what I'm going to go with.
Jahrhundert. Anyway, the important thing is that it is a Bavarian lager.
What's it mean?
It means Bavarian.
I mean, I saw like
lager.
100. I feel like it has, maybe that's like 100.
Well, hold on. This is a crisp, golden, well-balanced Anger at the foot of the Bavarian Alps is one of the world's most respected breweries, family-owned and operated since 1874.
Who owned it before then?
A major corporation.
They were InBev, weren't they?
InBev.
Dang it.
Of course. So this is a Bavarian lager. German beers, a large portion of them are a variety of lager styles. And there's a few different kinds of common lagers.
And what makes a beer?
Pale lagers like this.
What makes a beer a
Bavarian
lager?
Lager being one of them. Well, Joe, if you watched our first episode, which you didn't because it hasn't aired
Literally
yet,
no one's watched it.
A lager uses a different type of yeast than an ale, and it ferments at cooler temperatures. So lagers are a much more recent technology, I guess you could say, a category of beer, because previously refrigeration didn't exist. And they were brewed in different places at different times seasonally, but it didn't become something that was distributed worldwide until I think the late 1700s or sometime in the 1800s. All right. I talked about it in another episode.
I was
I
just
can't remember
wondering.
the exact date. So
Well, I've heard the term lagering.
yeah, lagering. That's a process that happens towards the end where they clarify the beer in a special type of tank, lagering vessel,
Oh, there you go.
and then you get this beautiful crystal clear, haze-free beer. But lagers tend to have like more of a kind of crisp, clean flavor. They usually lower in alcohol, but there's all different kinds of lagers, dark, heavy ones. But this is a pale lager, so let's drink it. Prost.
Roast.
That's so good.
I
Delicious.
must confess, I have had this beer before, so I knew
Have you?
I knew what I was getting into, and
It's-
I'm happy to be here already.
You know what it kind of makes me think of, as far as popular craft beers go. Have you ever had Toasted Lager by Blue Point?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So it's got a hoppy profile for sure, but it's got a real toasty backbone to it.
Yeah.
You get that kind of malty sweetness.
That little.
It's really good.
It's not that upfront flavor. It's the end flavor where you
Yep.
get that real
Yeah,
character. Yeah.
in the back, definitely. It's super good. Super good. A lot of lagers, cheap lagers, you get a sweetness in the back, but it's like a cereal, cheap corn, rice kind of flavor.
And I mean, you feel like maybe these Germans know what they're doing with beer.
They know what they're
Crazy.
doing for sure. So,
How long have they been doing it?
well, that's a
Segue.
great segue. Actually, beer has been brewed in Germany for centuries. The problem is that the Germans were a little slow on the written word. So it's true. So, I mean, they assume that they were brewing as far as like 2000 BC, like sometime in the Bronze Age probably is when they began. But they don't have any hard evidence until 800 BC. The Teutonic tribes were known for brewing, and a lot of the record that we have. Well, first of all, they did find. They actually found a clay pot. Let's see if Dennis can guess where the clay pot was.
Was it Egypt?
No,
No.
burial ground. I was going for burial ground.
So you didn't want a specific location.
I was gonna go in the dirt.
The German beer pot was found in Egypt. No, just
What,
remember.
did nobody travel back in the what is it, 1600s or whatever? I don't know.
No, we're 800 BC.
800 BC.
Dennis is really bad at dates.
BC, AC, DC.
AC/DC.
Does it matter?
No, so they found this clay pot in a burial mound. 1935, they found it. It was in Bavaria.
They who?
Which is where a lot of our story takes place. The clay pot foundation,
What year was that again?
1935.
Oh, so that's after Koenig Ludwig was killed and found under mysterious circumstances?
Yes.
I'm just saying. I mean, King of Bavaria.
Yes.
Look him up. No,
I don't know what he's talking about.
he was like the last king of Bavaria, and he and his, I don't know if he was his therapist.
Oh, was this when Germany became a country?
This is when he had a castle built, and that's what the Magic Kingdom is supposed to be based off of. The Neuschwanstein Castle. Been there.
Ah.
Yeah.
We should put a graphic up of that.
Yeah.
Neuschwanstein.
Oh, we can't put a graphic up of Cinderella Castle.
I mean, if you prefer, maybe do a side by side.
All right.
Who wore it better?
Well, anyway, who wore it better? So they found this vessel, and it had traces of bread, which was used to make the mash. We talked about a little bit in our Ancient Beers episode how they brewed beer in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, and it looks like they did the exact same brewing method in ancient what is now Germany. But there's no actual evidence that there was ever communication, so they sort of figured it out the same way, just in different places, different times, which is pretty neat. And they I guess the vessel that they found, it was like a black wheat beer, which sounds kind of cool. So then, the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, you had the Germans, which were sort of in the north, the Germanic people were in the north part of what's now Northern Europe. And then in the southern part of Europe, it was the Celts. And it's sort of confusing when you read about these tribes because they moved around throughout the next 1,000 years, The Romans came in and they started wreaking havoc with them. You have the Teutons, which some people say are Celts, some people say they're Germanic. And then if you really trace everybody to modern day, when you think Celt, you think like the Scottish and the Irish.
Yeah.
They're really the ancestors of modern day Germans. So the Germanic tribes and the Celtic tribes blended quite a bit, and it's pretty confusing. So anyway, the point being, when you hear people talking about Celts or the Germanic people from back then, you can kind of assume that a lot of them are, the roots of what are now the German.
Well, I was gonna say, the
German people.
The way you say, you think of people from Ireland or Scotland, but if you look at where they're located, it's just this random island. Yeah. They didn't just appear on this they had to come from somewhere. So
exactly.
It does make sense.
Well, and then it kind of makes you think about what kind of ties there are genetically between, the mainland Europe folks and the people who've been in tribes on the island for, centuries now. It's pretty interesting. But anyway, so once the Roman Empire started pulling in, everything sort of got Germanized, and there was just headbutting constantly between the two. There was a book written called Iron Age Braumeisters of the Teutonic Forest by a guy named Horst Duenbersch. And this is what he says. It's pretty interesting. So this is describing the Celtic people, the Teutonic people,
okay,
which they believe is a blend of the Germans and the Celts. Quote, they thought the sky as a giant brew kettle where Thor, the god of thunder, was brewmaster. When he noisily cleaned and polished his kettle, there were lightning bolts, and when he boiled his wort, there were clouds. There is no doubt that, at least by 800 BC, European forest dwellers had learned to make on Earth what they believed Thor made in the sky. So these guys were sort of like doing the work of the gods on Earth. And it's funny because in the Ancient Beer episode, that was a common theme. It was this religious thing almost.
So you're saying that's not what Thunder and Lightning is?
Well, no, I'm not saying that's not what Thunder and Lightning.
Because I thought you were going to give me this.
That's what I tell my children.
I thought you were going to give me this science about weather patterns.
I've heard that garbage too. Children, yes, the god Thor is brewing another batch. Let us mimic him on Earth.
You and your Western medicine. I like my Eastern medicine.
So, up until like 50 BC, like halfway through that century, there was no written word from the Germanic people at all.
Word?
But then once Julius Caesar came in, these guys had been, writing things down for quite some time. And actually, Julius Caesar himself had a record of when he was a general of all of his conquests, and a lot of the information that we have from that whole area comes from him directly, which is pretty neat. It's also super biased, and you can't really trust any of it.
No.
But it's really, really interesting. It's a cool thing to read. But there were other people as well who sort of wrote a lot of this stuff down. They called it, the Romans called it the barbarians' beverage. And they actually, a lot of times, would call it a barley wine because they were used to making wine.
Sure.
It was like a central part of their culture. So that's what, to them, it was like wine made from barley. But they were sort of like, it was below them. It was this thing that they didn't think was, worth their time.
And how's the Roman Empire doing nowadays? That's all I'm saying.
Hey, it wasn't built in a day, all right? They're coming back. It's going to be a big comeback.
Call it a comeback.
So the Romans and the Greeks, actually, they actually documented a lot of the brewing processes, even though it wasn't part of their culture. There was a Greek historian. He was also a geographer. His name was Strabo. This is in the 1st century. And he said that they actually found bronze brew kettles that were like 130 gallons in size. So I think like Intracoastal, their first brew system was like 1.5 barrels or something.
Yeah.
This is like about a 3-barrel system. That's like a full-size, smaller craft brewery today. So, and these are in like these little tribal villages. It's pretty neat, I think. So I thought it was funny that they called it a barley wine, though, because it's a style of beer. Yeah, it's a traditional English style, and of course we brew them in the U.S. now. American barley wine, which is one of my favorite beers. So anyway, they also, this Strabo guy, he kind of wrote down some interesting details about what they would put in the beer. And, back then they weren't using hops. So they would throw in all kinds of wacky stuff. So he said they used oak bark, aspen leaves, the content of an oxen's gallbladder. I don't know which one's worse. And then they also drank a lot of mead.
I know what the bladder does, but does the gallbladder have anything to do with that?
Made it spicy. It's very acidic beer.
The contents of its gallbladder. That sounds like that could be the source of some fermentation, though, right?
It could be, yeah.
The yeast. There could be a yeast content there.
It's like I can't imagine that they were like, "Hey, I got a great idea. Got this gallbladder here from an animal I just butchered. Let's squeeze that in our beer." It almost seems like they must have been just experimenting with stuff and see how it affected it.
Didn't kill us last
time. Prost. So there's a guy, a Roman guy named Publius Cornelius Tacticus, and he wrote a book called "About the Origin and Location of the Germans" in 98 AD. It was a clever title. And this is really funny, though. I love this quote. So this guy wrote this in 98 AD. That's how old this is. I think I said BC the first time. AD. He says, quote, "The Germanic folk were proficient imbibers who sought out even the slightest excuse for having a drinking party." Pardon my fake accent. No, it's not even German. "No other people were inclined to enjoy so much the art of banqueting and entertaining as the Germans, as it was customary for them to invite strangers into their homes and share a meal and a brew. The Germani serve an extract of barley and rye as a beverage that is somehow adulterated to resemble wine." So it's like he's got this disdain towards it. Yes. Like, oh, here's our wine. That's not wine, peasants.
Somehow adulterated.
Barbarians. Yep. Man, that is so good. So, and then there was Emperor Flavius Claudius Julianas, who's the nephew of Constantine the Great. And he wrote a poem, and this is what he says, okay? Same kind of, in the same vein.
"Roses are red, violets are blue. He likes beer. I do too. Thank you."
No, he would say, "I do not."
Nay.
Because I hate it.
Oh.
It didn't rhyme, though, so he had to go in a different direction.
Maybe in Latin it does rhyme. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, and actually, this doesn't rhyme at all, so it's probably also the same situation. So he says, "This drink is not from Dionysus." Dionysus was the god of fertility and wine. "What makes beer reek of goat, while wine has the scent of nectar. The Celts invented it from ears of barley, because they have neither grapes nor a nose. Beer is not a child of the ethereal gods, but just plain grain." I thought plain grain sounds like the name of a brewery or something. It sounds awesome.
Can we just put a pin on the fact that you said the god of fertility and wine? Where
Same dude.
It's
Dionysus.
one equals the other, or vice versa.
Well, yeah. You get drunk, and there you go.
It makes perfect sense.
Or you get fertile and then you get drunk because.
I think it's you just.
That's
I
true.
think
It does work in both ways.
You get drunk and you get fertilized.
If you get drunk enough.
Like the lawn? All right.
Fertilized,
drink some beers. And
or if you drink even more, you get sterilized.
Or euthanized. If you go even further,
that's the final.
That's too
the
much.
final step on your journey.
I feel like this is like the Sesame Street version of beer history, where we just rhyme everything.
It's brought to you by the letter beer.
The letter beer.
All right. Actually, before we go to the next part, I'm actually gonna actually bring the next beer out.
Good, because this is becoming a dry conversation.
Hey. That Joe, he's a clever boy.
I can't take credit for that.
It feels like these beers get bigger and bigger.
Or else you're getting smaller and smaller.
I think I don't think they're a different size. They're probably the same. Yeah, these are 500 ml. But all right. So what we have here is Schneider Weiss, which has been around for a long time. I've only had a couple Schneider Weiss beers.
That particular bottle's been around for a long time?
This bottle is not, but the brewery has.
Did you roll it?
You gotta get some of the, I do a swirl.
Ugh.
Bring your cup over here. Hold on, I'm not done.
No.
Settle down there, buddy. Schneider Weiss. Brooklyn Brewery did a couple, I think they might still do them. like collaborations with Schneider Weiss, and they were super good. There you go. See, you get the cloud at the bottom. So you guys, what Joe was referring to and what I'm vaguely doing is this is a Hefeweizen, and when you have a beer, a German Hefeweizen, they typically are unfiltered. They should be at least.
Is there?
And which means that
Okay,
there's yeast sediment at the bottom, and that's actually a good thing with this style of beer. You get a lot of flavor out of the yeast. So what you can do is what I did was I poured about half the beer and then I swirled it and poured the rest in. Or you can actually roll the bottle on the table before you open it. Make sure you don't shake it up.
Why's that?
And then
No, I have to mix it.
it ruins the flavor.
It ruins your drapes, your carpet,
It
your
ruins
recording equipment.
and the beer, most importantly. So this is a cool one, man. This is like a pretty dark Hefeweizen. Is this a regular Hefeweizen? German Hefeweizen ale. Yep. Bottle fermented, natural taste, unfiltered.
Bottle fermented. Oh, that's nice. Well, I guess that would explain why you have the yeast.
Oh, I gotta read what it says. The world famous original wheat beer from Bavaria's oldest wheat beer brewery. That's pretty interesting. So this is like a pretty old formula, I imagine. Carefully selected ingredients, skilled fermentation in open vessels, as well as bottle fermentation guarantee the distinctive taste of this authentic wheat beer. That's pretty cool, man. So this is open fermentation. That always confuses me. Open vessels. I don't know how they keep bacteria from getting into it.
I was going to say, how do you get any quality control whatsoever?
I don't know, but man, that's super good. But I mean, it's a practice that's been done for ages.
Natural taste.
Very good, very good.
Unfiltered.
So that's a German Hefeweizen beer. We're going to get to Hefeweizens in a little bit, actually, because there's some interesting stuff about those.
Is Schneider actually the family last name?
Schneider. Maybe. I would imagine. I don't think Weiss is, though. Oh, I don't know. Actually, there's
Rachel Weiss?
Yeah, there's a lot of Weisses in German
different.
last names. Maybe it is. Weiss means white. Weizen means wheat, I think. So we're in the early the zeros, roughly 100 AD.
The hundreds.
So a few hundred years go by, fighting between the Germans and the Romans. Breweries actually start popping up more and more.
In the middle of battle?
Not in the middle of battle. Although it's funny you say that, because the Romans were like renowned for like popping up practically entire cities overnight, where they were going to be doing battles. But they even started finding them in Roman cities. So the Romans were all, oh, beer's beneath us. But then they were like, except for this brewery over here.
Except for this guy.
It was like speakeasies. So the Roman Empire was all but gone around 500 AD. And we don't really care about the next 500 years. I didn't find anything too excited beer related. But
is that like the German beer dark ages?
No, I mean, I don't think it like changed for the worse during that time. I just don't think anything interesting happened other than just drinking beer.
First.
About 1500 AD now. We're in Bavaria. We're going to focus on Bavaria now, the Kingdom of Bavaria.
I like their donuts.
Which eventually was one of the founding states of what is now Germany. You can go to Bavaria still to this day. It's a state in Germany.
I've been there.
And it's where all the fun stuff happened. So we get some sort of like conflicting historical information in the next part of the story. Around 1455, Johann Gutenberg invented
The movable type printing press.
That is correct, Joe.
I was just going to say printing press, but wow. You really...
Joe is smart.
I was going to say the Police
be
Academy
both.
movies. That was my second guess.
Police Academy. A little bit later. That would be Steve Gutenberg, by the way.
Same
So, Steve Gutenberg.
The Goot.
Johann Gutenberg lived around like 68 years. So it was he was actually born in 1400. So he died in 1468. And by the time he died,
He was the oldest man in the world.
everyone thinks no, he was not. Well, maybe he was.
68, that's what it says.
This is a terrible time period. The printing press, everyone who knows a little bit about the printing press, it just was this massive invention. It changed the face of the planet. Everybody was reading and printing books, and the Bible. Everybody printed the Bible.
You could print beer. I mean,
it was actually not great at all for like 60 years, all the way past his death. Nobody was reading still. People couldn't read, and
wow, look at all this.
They printed Bibles. And they didn't print much else because nobody would buy books. That was the problem.
Little known fact, he was also illiterate, so no one could read what he printed.
He just mashed the keys.
What was that? I don't know.
There's a lot of pictures back then. So can you guess who it is that sort of took the invention of the printing press and made real use out of it for the first time?
Ben Franklin. John Adams.
Wrong.
John Quincy Adams.
Nope. No.
You're just going to name
Wasn't
every
that
president?
Martina Navratilova.
No, we're still in the 1400s here. Early 1500s. No, you're taking too long. Anybody? No.
What country? Give me a country.
Germany. In Bavaria.
In Germany.
Yeah. This something happened that everybody wanted to read, and it just exploded.
The Protestant Reformation. Martin Luther.
Bam! You got it. You got it. Nice. Ding, 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 ding. So Gutenberg died in 1468. Luther was born in 1483. So that kind of shows you how much further down the line this was. A lot of you might already know the Protestant Revolution. You had the Catholic Church, which became
Reformation, but whatever.
Which became terrible, and Martin Luther had a lot of issues with the Catholic Church as well as many other people, and
his 95 theses?
He famously nailed the 95 Theses to the door of some major church. I can't remember. No, Joe doesn't know it. Okay.
The First Baptist Church of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
No, it was a Catholic church. Anyway, so
Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
The ideas that he had in these 95 Theses were things that really stirred up the public and people got behind him. And it started a lot of trouble for the Catholic Church, who really was in control of a lot of what was going on in the government and a lot of other things like that. So people loved what he had to say, and all of a sudden everybody wanted a copy of it. And people were literally learning to read so they could read these things or have people read them to them. So this is pretty crazy. They printed 3.1 million copies of it, and the population of Bavaria, the Kingdom of Bavaria, was about 12 million. So that's like a third of the population getting a copy of it. And you got to imagine family households and stuff like that. Almost everybody had access to these 95 Theses. So here's where the controversy kind of comes in. At the time, it's going to sound like I'm jumping completely far away, right? So Martin Luther, he was actually like he was a beer guy. His wife brewed beer. They had a little brewery and kind of an inn where they would take people in and let them stay. This was a big thing with him. Hops was not being used yet still at this point. Hops was sort of like a weed that I'm sure people had thought of using it in beer, but the bitter flavor wasn't a popular flavor of the time. And the other thing...
Why use a hop when you have gallbladder...
oxen gallbladders. Well, that was 1,000 years earlier. I imagine they stopped doing that by this point.
No. Guts.
Zip. I don't know why I unzipped it.
Oh, it's got a zip.
No.
Like that, what was that little meme or whatever they got? Little sprinkle it in.
I know that there's going to be a lot of references to Guardians of the Galaxies when I say this, but Groot is what was used at the time. Go ahead.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Dennis?
Never heard of it.
Nope, nobody's going to say.
Guardians of the
I
what?
am Groot.
There we go. Thank you. Groot was used, spelt differently. What Groot was a series of... There was actual crops that were grown... a lot of different things that were used to flavor beer, and they also had different properties to them. Some of them were like a narcotic, some of them were an aphrodisiac, some of them had like psychotropic effects and stuff like that. And of course, you got drunk from beer too. So when you drank a beer back then, there was a whole lot going on most of the time.
And if there was lead or mercury in the vessel that was being used, there was that as well.
Oh, that was a fun positive too. Yep. So beer was literally used as a way to kind of get high, or to like people would get all hyped up and all kinds of crazy stuff. And
Let's get pissed.
And Groot, these different crops that were used to create Groot were taxed heavily by the Catholic Church. According to some sources. So here's where the controversy is. Some people say that the church taxed Groot ingredients, and Martin Luther's work got people riled up against the Catholic Church, and they wanted to rebel. So they were like, we don't care about Groot. We're not going to use it anymore. We want to stick it to the man. We're going to start putting hops in, which was basically like if I was like, if hops were taxed and I was like, I'm going to use dandelions. It's a weed. It's not taxed. Nobody cares about it. So they started using hops to flavor their beer, and then it basically changed the face of beer. The other theory, I'm going to call them theories because both of these sources that I was reading from acted like it was fact. But yeah, the other school of thought, the church, of course, hated Martin Luther. They had it in for him, and they believed that Groot beer was pagan because of the properties, the psychotropic properties and all this other stuff. So they decided they wanted to replace it with hops because hops had more mellowing qualities to it, and it would help control the people better than what they were drinking at the time. So you've got two different versions which are completely different from each other. I don't know how maybe it has been settled, but I wasn't able to find anything solid from
you don't
either
have to
side.
take Dave's word for it.
There's nobody whose word you can take from it that I can tell. So, excuse me, listeners. In any case, what we got as a result was
hops.
No, the Reinheitsgebot is
Oh.
what we were looking for.
Oh, sorry, what was that?
The Reinheitsgebot, which is also called the German purity law.
Oh, sorry.
There's actually a bunch of laws. So this was in 1516. There were two brothers, Duke Wilhelm IV and Ludwig X of Bavaria. And basically they created this document.
See? A different Ludwig
A different Ludwig
of Bavaria.
of Bavaria. Well, there's been 10 at this point, so. They basically created this document. There was a whole bunch of different ordinances on here, and beer was just one of them. It's only a small part of it.
So
And-
the purity law, is that
Yeah.
is that the section that we only talk about beer, or is it the whole thing?
No.
called
The purity law is just that section.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I understand it. And that section's actually called specifically what they called it was how beer shall be served and brewed in summer and winter in the countryside. That was the name of that ordinance.
So in spring, it's like a free for all.
I thought about that too. I'm like, this seems oddly specific. So basically, this is what the text is from that section, or an excerpt of that kind of gives you an idea of what they were telling us.
Are you gonna read this in German?
I'm not going to read it in German, so I'm not that good. And also, that would be confusing. So it says, quote, "In particular, we decree that henceforth in our towns, markets, and in the countryside, nothing but barley, hops, and water shall be used to brew beer. Anyone who knowingly violates this decree shall be punished by the court by having each of these beer barrels removed from his possession." I bet you thought I was going to say their head cut off or something like that.
I thought maiming at the very least.
No maiming. Nope. They just took it.
So,
Not that big a deal, really.
but I mean, like, is that like first offense? Is like we'll spill your stuff. Second, we'll spill it twice. I mean, like,
Everything I read was they took it from you. That was all I saw.
that's weak sauce.
So they consider it the world's first consumer protection law because there were several different details. That's not the whole text. They regulated the prices through this text. So they said during these months, beer cost this much. During these months, it cost this much. They also regulated how much profit you could get. So if you were an innkeeper, it was something like, I read it directly. It was something like, they called it a bucket. I'm sure that was a unit of measurement. 1 bucket of beer, you can only have 1 farthing of whatever the unit of money was at the time.
I've had a bucket of beer before. I mean, the prices can vary on that, but
yeah. So they could only make so much money. They couldn't price gouge because of these laws. And then they also, of course, barley, water, and hops are the only ingredients you're allowed to have. And a lot of people think that the main reason for this law wasn't so much for consumer protection, but it was more for the baking industry because I guess there was a lot of fighting over wheat and rye for bread versus brewing beer because wheat was a popular brewing ingredient.
Well, I
at the
guess
time.
we didn't have like industrial farms the way we do now, where there's just like an abundance of all of
Sure,
these
it's
things.
probably a
So it is-
network of farmers,
Yeah, so it's like if we're drinking all the wheat, guess what? We're gonna die.
we don't have bread.
That's it.
Yep. So, and then excuse me, sorry about that. A lot of a lot of people say that it was also because the crazy ingredients in Groot had toxic properties to them, and they were trying to make things less toxic and more consumable. So for safety purposes. So whatever the reason was, I'm sure it was a combination of different things. And it also could have been as simple as the Catholic Church said, we don't want Groot anymore, we want hops. Or the people could have said, screw the Catholic Church, let's make this law. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just David. What do I know? I'm just David Schweinfleisch Tataro. What do I know? So nowadays
pig skin.
The what?
The Schweinfleisch, that just means pig skin.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I like it. It's one of my favorite words in German.
Old pig skin.
I'm going to take a little stop here and I'm going to pour our last beer.
Drop. Oh, or stop.
The Beastie Boys are going to make the beat.
Oh, I see a dunkel.
Oh, nope. It's not a dunkel.
I see the word dunkel right there.
It's not, though.
Doppelbock dunkel.
This is a Doppelbock. Okay, it is a Doppelbock dunkel. I think that's kind of weird. Those are two separate styles.
But dunkel just means dark.
Does it?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I mean, we may
so it's a dark Doppelbock, but all Doppelbocks are dark. So does that mean every Doppelbock is a dunkel?
The buck stops here.
Wow.
I don't know what we're doing here.
Dennis, you fix that in post for us? Glasses, please.
I do have the poet.
My favorite beer style, my favorite German beer style, 100% is Doppelbock. And it's one of my favorite styles just in general. I also very much like Eisbachs. Have you ever had an Eisbach before, Joe?
I believe so.
You know about Eisbachs, like how they make them?
No.
So it's Eisbach means ice. It's an ice bock, and they take a bock beer and they freeze the beer to a point where ice crystals form. And they skim it off.
Oh, is that how they like semi distill it, kind of?
Yeah.
So it'll raise the alcohol.
Yes. So if you ever wonder why you don't see Eisbachs at breweries in the U.S., how I understand is we consider it in the U.S. a method of distilling. So if you're just a regular brewer, you can't do it.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
Yeah.
Ja. I mean, could you imagine if I had a brewery? I thought about doing this when we were working on Crane Creek. I wanted to create an Eisbach basically for every single style. I would take a small amount of everything we brew and just try it. You know, I mean, there's plenty of breweries out there that also distill. I know Rogue is one of them. I don't know why this isn't a thing.
The good thing about distilling this way is I don't know, but I'm assuming you wouldn't get a huge flavor change because, like when you add heat to actually distill something, you can actually break down some of the things.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You're not doing that.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was agreeing. So like, where if you could somehow get the exact same output in alcohol, out of it, you'd say, wow, they taste so different because
you're just concentrating without heating it up. Yeah,
exactly. And this one's just been.
Although technically, you
squeeze the water out, so to speak.
You're cooking it when you make it, though, to begin with.
But you're cooking a finished product.
It's true. It's like reheating your steak in the microwave. So this is
exactly like that.
This is Andex. This is actually a brewery that I just got introduced to kind of recently. So this is their Doppelbock Dunkel, and it's super good, man. I like it a lot. I think it's great. This says, located just outside of Munich, Bavaria, this famous brewery... It's a very shiny label, so it's hard to read. Equally famous Benedictine monastery is located right at the feet of the holy mountain of Andex. Destination for pilgrims since the 15th century. That's what we're talking about today.
Oh, look at that.
Is known for its spectacular beers and hospitality. I guess technically we're talking about the 14th century, right?
But still, I mean...
Or is it the 16th century? I always get confused.
Like
first century is 0.
Well, the 20th century was the 1900s, so 15.
We're in the 14th century.
1400s.
Yeah. So, okay, yeah. No, but we're in 15, 16 now.
So we're in the 16th.
So we're in the 16th century. We're bad at math, or maybe we're good. I don't know.
I mean, we're just slow. We're just old computers.
Ah, that is so good.
Single processor.
You guys should definitely pick up some of this Andex Doppelbock. It's really good. So. Today, everybody has this view of the Reinheitsgebot as this like amazing. Oh, it's what makes German beer so perfect, and German beer is amazing, and it's very, very unique. I mean, they've been doing it for ages, and this has a lot to do with that.
But it sounds more like it's a kind of bureaucracy, being ahead of any sort of actual progress.
That's kind of what I'm going for here. I think it's become a marketing thing more than anything.
At this point, yeah.
At this point. And it's interesting. Greg Cook from Stone Brewing he actually opened a brewery in Germany for a little while, a stone brewery in Germany. What was it called? I got it in here. It was called Stone Brewing World Bistro and Gardens in Berlin. So he opened it in 2016. And he had something to say about the Reinheitsgebot because none of his beer follows it at all. So he said, apart from a long and difficult to spell word, and I actually do know how to spell it, it was a taxation law, he argued. I bet almost no average beer drinker would be able to tell you that it only showed up on a German beer label for the first time in the 1950s, and it was used as a marketing term throughout the 20th century. Pretty interesting. So,
so when we were making these fizzy fuzzy adjunct lagers here in the U.S., they're like, no. This is the good stuff that follows the German purity laws. So like,
and people here were like, "Oh, that sounds important.
Sounds fancy, yeah."
Yeah. So I mean, if you think about that, if that's actually true, I don't know if we can fact check.
Once again in post,
Greg Cook, but that means that would
Greg
mean
Cook, I know him.
That would mean we can just ask him where he got his.
Well, it might be a different Greg Cook.
Ask him where he got his info from.
Definitely different Greg Cook.
Not the same Greg Cook. So, but my point is, I mean, if this law was passed in 1516 and it didn't show up on a label until 1950, I mean, that tells you that in Germany, I'm sure most people didn't really even know it was a thing. I mean, after they created this law, 1516, right? 1520, somebody already created a loophole where they could use wheat. Because the first thing I thought of when I was doing research for this was, okay, wheat beers have been around for ages, and that does not follow the Reinheitsgebot at all. And it's because they create a loophole. So, it's bureaucracy, like you said. So I think it definitely had an effect on...
It's bureaucracy, or is it bureaucracy?
Bureaucracy. It's bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy.
That's got to be the name of something. That would be a terrible name for a brewery, though. It's like we ruin beer for everyone. We're bureaucracy.
You won't even be able to taste it through all that red tape.
That's right. That's our tagline. So, unfortunately, that Stone Brewery in Berlin closed in 2019. But it's funny because it didn't close, actually. It got sold to Brewdog, which is, you know about Brewdog, the Scottish brewery? They do crazy stuff.
The two guys, they had a show for a while.
They did, yep.
They still might. I don't have TV.
Joe's living in the 1500s. So, the real thing to get out of this whole Reinheitsgebot thing and Martin Luther and all the stuff that happened during the 1500s, the 1400s, beer. No, listen, this is nuts, man. I think it's crazy. Beer went from being you can use any grain and you can put whatever the hell you want in it to flavor it, to it's made from barley and it's made from hops. I mean, this transformed beer into exactly what it is that we all know today. And
well, even before that, though,
this little story is what caused that to happen.
It went from swill that the savages made to and then you could put anything in it.
It's like
to now it's this purity stuff. Like, well, is it swill or is it?
Yeah, I mean, they pulled out all the garbage and they made it a refined process, and this is what has to go in it, and that's all that can go in it. And whatever the rationale behind those laws is kind of just inconsequential. We have this amazing quality product that comes from Germany now that you can't replicate, really, at least not very easily. And everything that you drink in every other country really branches out of those changes that were made there. So it's pretty nuts. I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, it's sort of like the formation of modern beer happened during that whole time period. So pretty cool. Today in Germany, if you're a home brewer, you can produce up to 200 liters of beer per year. You can't sell it, but you can make a lot of beer, and you don't have to pay taxes on it at all. And you do not have to follow the Reinheitsgebot. In fact, it's not even really in place. I think it got I don't know what the word is. Repealed or something like that, and sometime in the late 1900s. And it's sort of just followed by people voluntarily. I think if you are in Germany and you brew something like
it's a standard you hold yourself to if you choose to.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say you follow the Reinheitsgebot if you don't follow the Reinheitsgebot. And if you're a German brewery, that's like an important part of your marketing probably. But I think still, though, culturally, if you're in Germany and you brew beer that's made from rice or something like that. You can't call it beer. People aren't going to consider it beer.
Well, so I mean, I guess that kind of brings me to, and maybe you didn't look at this, but what's like the beer, other than obviously the traditional? I mean, I know a lot of people probably drink that in Germany, but like, what's the beer culture like in Germany now? I mean, what's their view on craft? I mean, I know like it used to be way back when, like every village had their little brewery, and you didn't distribute. I mean, what's it like, the beer culture now?
So I did a lot of reading about that, and it seems like very, very recently things have sort of started moving in that direction. I mean, 2016 was not that long ago, and that's when he opened that Stone Brewery in Berlin, and it did not do great. It didn't do terrible, and actually the reason they closed wasn't even because of a lack of interest in the beer. It was actually because of construction issues. They have you should read about it. Look it up. Just look up Stone Brewing Germany construction issues. He actually did I haven't watched it yet. I need to. He did a mini documentary called Beer Jesus. Something. Dang it. Something about beer. Can you look it up real quick? Beer Jesus in the something or other. He'll tell us in a second. It's just you know what's mixing me up before we started recording when you were saying Fat Jesus.
Beer Jesus from America.
That's it. Beer Jesus from America. That was not even that hard for me to remember. Beer Jesus from America. I think he talks all about what happened, but essentially they. It sounded like it was union-y type stuff. Like they were like, we're not doing it until this happens. We're not doing it until that happens. Hey, we need you to do this instead of that. Nope, we're not doing it. You know, I mean, it was just hold up after hold up after hold up after hold up. And it cost them just massive amounts of money sitting on it, not being able to brew beer or do what they need to do. And that's actually what killed the brewery. But he does also talk about how the lack of interest was pretty heavy. People were like, what is this garbage? This isn't beer.
Was ist los?
Now he did what I don't know if this was from him. I read several different articles and different interviews with different people from the area and stuff like that. And it sounds like in very small specific areas where you have like a younger crowd who's more apt to new ideas, there actually is an interest in craft beer, and small craft breweries have been popping up in Germany. So I imagine that once that generation grows and gets bigger, and more affluent throughout the country, I think in 20 years you're going to see a lot of craft beer in Germany.
So once Das Boomers are gone?
Das Boomers. But I just hope it doesn't kill off any of these old breweries, because they're just, like I said earlier,
I love
it's very difficult to replicate the quality.
This one's by far my favorite of the three.
Me too. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
But I'm kind of a brown flavoring as far as my flavor profile. You know, I really like the browns, and this is.
I'm all over the place, but my favorite beers. If I point out all my favorite beers, they all tend to be darker. Scotch ales. I love Scotch ales. So let's do one last thing. I have there's a brewery in Germany called Achschling-Kurle, and they're awesome, really good. They specialize in smoked beers, and they're very old, and they literally smoke the ingredients.
Is this like Scotch beer? Not a Scotch ale, but literally like the beer version of Scotch?
The beer version, yeah, I guess you could say it's like
not
Scotch
beer.
Yeah. So one of my favorite beers on earth is the Achschling-Kurle Doppelbock. It's just like, man, it is smoky. And if you get some barbecue takeout and, pour yourself that beer, it's just like such a massively amazing combo. It's so good. Well, anyway, they make this liquor. They just call it a liquor, but it's a whiskey is what it is. It's an unfiltered liquor, German liquor from the brewery, from Achschling-Kurle.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so, if you don't know much about whiskey is basically distilled beer. So I'm going to try to kick up some of the stuff from the bottom here. There we go.
Which you're allowed to shake this because it's not carbonated.
And good luck finding...
How did you...
Yes, this is not carbonated. Boom! Good luck finding this stuff, because I have only seen it in one place. I mean, it's not something you're going to find at the liquor store.
Challenge accepted.
You can even tell like the label and stuff. It's like, it's very like a local feeling.
That looks like it was printed on like an old like inkjet.
Yeah, it does. Maybe it was. This is Dennis. I'm going to put ice in yours. Do you want ice in yours? No. So
You want a knuckle sandwich?
I got this at a local place called The Mansion, which is absolutely amazing place for. They're actually a restaurant, but they have a retail section where they have tons of really unique, crazy.
I'm getting that on my nose already.
I know, dude. I'm telling you, it's crazy.
What am I, like 4 feet away from it right now? And I'm getting it on the nose.
Dude, it's nuts. It's like nothing you're gonna ever have. Oh, God,
It smells strong.
So
It smells really strong.
It is really strong. It's really strong.
I wish I knew.
This is way outside of Dennis's box. We should cut to Dennis while he drinks it. Go ahead, take a sip, Dennis.
Take a little sip with me.
What do you think?
Holy moly. There it is.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's actually pretty good.
Nice,
I like
cool.
it,
All
yeah.
right. I was really curious if you'd like it or not. I would have bet on no. That's cool that you like it.
When you were saying smoky, I didn't think that I would like the smokiness, but it's actually
So
pretty good.
Yeah, it is. It's
It
amazing.
hits you about a full 2 seconds after you first like sip and smoke.
Yeah.
Sip and smoke. That seems like a speakeasy or something.
Sip and smoke.
You want to go to the old sip and smoke?
Sip and smoke. What's neat about this is it's when you have a smoky whiskey, it's almost always a Scotch. And I mean, I've had some smoky bourbons before, but this is so different. It doesn't taste even remotely like a Scotch. It's completely its own weird little thing. I love it. And you're probably, if you're listening to this or watching it on YouTube, you're probably not gonna be able to find it, but you probably will be able to find their beer.
You can find the beer. I've seen the labels. Yeah.
Total Wine. If you have a Total Wine near you, their chain, they have them. I would imagine if you have an ABC Liquor by you that has a good beer selection, you can probably find it there. I mean, they have a bunch of varieties that are available.
Not all ABCs are created equal.
No, that's true. That's why I said if an ABC with a good variety.
So where did you acquire this?
At that place, The Mansion. So they have.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
They got hundreds of bottles.
Don't dawdle.
And they're
Keep up.
weird. This was a really weird one, and they only had one bottle there. And
They only had ein bottle.
Ein bottle. And,
They didn't have 9 bottles.
they don't have 9
No,
bottles.
no, they did have a bottle. Not no. They had yes. They had da bottle.
Dom bottle. So they, I recognized the name. I was like, oh my gosh, is that like the brewery? The guys who work there they're experts. They know everything. And they even didn't really know much about it, and I'm like, I got to buy this, but it was super expensive. So I'm like, well, I can't just buy this bottle. It was like,
How much was that in beer?
this bottle was like $200. So
In beer?
that's a lot of cases. But I told Alexis, my wife Alexis, I'm like, maybe for my birthday this year, huh? And then she surprised me with it. I was so excited. I was worried it would get sold by then because they only had the one, So
So how long have you had it?
a couple years,
Okay.
yeah. So it's been sitting there for a couple years, but it's so good.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I really like it.
Yeah, I was surprised at how much I liked it.
I love that.
Really good.
I love that the word whiskey's nowhere on it too.
No, it's nowhere on there. I mean, it's definitely a whiskey, but yeah, it just says traditional Franconian spirits distilled from grain and distilled with hops. So they actually distill it with hops. That's pretty cool too. That's really cool. I didn't even notice that.
I don't even know what that means.
Distilled from
I need to know that process. Are there hops in it while they distill it, or is it?
That's what. I imagine that's what they do. They put it in the distiller. It says at the top, distilled from Schlenkerla smoke beer and finished on fresh smoke malt. Schlenkerla smoke malt Rausch Beer spirit. So Rausch Beer is a smoke beer.
Yeah.
Which again, all their beers. I think they have a lager, a Helles lager, that's not actually smoked, but they what do? They reuse something from one of their other beers, so you get a subtle smoky flavor in that one. But I think all the rest of them they actually smoke the malt and everything. But anyway, we're spending a lot of time on this. It's worth it though. One last fact. I thought this was pretty interesting, and we're gonna ask a couple questions to the guest and see.
Did you say Gestensee?
The Gestens. The Gestensee.
The Gestensee.
So as of 2013, the average German drinks 110 liters of beer per year, which is 29 gallons.
I thought you were going to ask me that question. Like, how many gallons is that? Like,
No.
Wait, should I switch to the
No,
metric
this is, I'm
system?
not doing math questions.
Oh, thank God.
So 29 gallons a year, and you got to think about the fact that this includes, I imagine it's adults. Maybe it includes children. I imagine it's adults, though. So this includes people who don't drink at all, right? Or people who drink spirits and don't drink beer or wine or whatever. So 29 gallons is the average. The average beer drinker is probably a lot higher. Now, that's the second highest on planet Earth. Can you guess who number one is?
How many guesses do I get?
You get 3 guesses. Dennis, I'm going to have you guess 3 guesses as well. So start thinking. Who is
Japan?
Japan? Bing! 1 guess.
Oh, they're like, wow, first guess, and that's a weird one.
Wait, was that
I'm
right?
not telling you till you get all the, put all the
okay.
guesses in.
I'm going to say Ireland.
Ireland.
I got to put it on the list. Put it on the list. I don't know. Like put it on the Ritz.
You know, when you said it, it sounded familiar, but I was like, I don't know what he's trying to say. All right, so we got Ireland, we got Japan. What else?
United Kingdom.
UK. Bing. Well,
I was
yeah,
just saying,
okay.
well, how's that work? Hold on.
No. Ireland is separate. The Northern Ireland is part of UK, right?
Bro.
Fact check that one.
This isn't the beer geography.
There's Ireland and Northern Ireland. I
Yeah.
can't remember which one's part of the UK. I think Ireland is separate. Northern Ireland.
Apparently,
is
it's
part of the UK.
neither of those because there was no tell.
Dennis can fact check that one. Okay, so Dennis says Japan. You say,
I think Northern Ireland's its own thing, by the way.
okay.
Yeah.
You said Ireland and
I just said Ireland, so.
Northern
you
Ireland
said the UK.
says it's a UK country.
Oh, okay, so it's part of the UK.
Country.
So yeah,
Country.
So regular.
Country.
So Ireland proper is its own country. All right, come on, we need more guesses. Let's go.
I'm just trying to think where there's a lot of
Come on.
drunk people.
It's actually
Germany?
No, they're number 2. we
Oh,
just
shit.
said that.
South Germany?
It's not a thing. Not a thing.
France.
No, but it's funny you say that because they're actually big into beer. Most people don't realize that
I know.
because you don't see many French beers
I
distributed.
know things.
All right, I'm just gonna go for the what I assume would be the obvious United States.
Okay, United States. So
it's
so you said Japan, UK,
Japan.
United States.
Yes.
You've got Ireland. You've got France. One more
Belgium.
guess. Belgium. That's a good guess. Bing.
Italy.
You both failed miserably.
Italy's on my.
Even your 4th guess is wrong. It is the Czech Republic, and that's kind of obvious.
Oh yeah.
Eastern Europeans, man, they can drink.
I guess we don't have to fact check that one.
Hey,
Hey-o!
that was good. I like that. That was Joe
What?
level. I think he's actually upset that he didn't come
No,
up with
I was
that.
like, what? It was so there that I didn't even get it because I was busy playing with your little barrel here.
All right.
Roll
Do you
out the barrel.
do you know German cities at all?
I've been to a few of them.
Okay, we're gonna do a quick quiz. I'm gonna name 5 beer styles, and you're gonna try to guess what city they originated in. All right. There's no doubles.
So hold on a
5
second.
different beer styles, 5 different cities.
Oh, 5 different beer styles, 5 different cities. They're not all in the same city.
No, they're all different cities. Okay. One of them's really easy, so you better at least get one right. Okay.
What if I already used that city for a different one?
No, you can reuse them if you want to be like I don't know, Hamburg, and just
With
hope one of
fries.
them's right. All right, you ready? Kolsch. Where did the Kolsch originate? We got to have a little TikTok noise during this.
You know
segment.
what's really bad? One of the episodes of my podcast, we talked about this, and when I was up in
what
with
was that? What was
Schlafly-
that brewery? No, it wasn't Schlafly.
When I was with Schlafly, they talked about this, and I'm having a total
About the Kolsch specifically.
yeah. It might not even be the stuff that made the air because I had a lot of recorded content, but oh my gosh, because that's like where
Check out Drinking and Driving on your local podcast provider. Come on, your time's ticking. Kolsch.
Stuttgart. I don't know.
All right.
It's not
Cologne.
right. No, I think. Oh my
Alt beer. It's funny because my
I know.
my moose head clock is actually
Alt
clicking.
beer. I don't know. Berlin.
Dusseldorf.
Oh, that's one of my favorite names of a city in Germany too.
That's a fun one to say.
It is just wonderful. I love that one. Dusseldorf. Berliner Weiss.
Berlin.
Ding ding.
Oh.
That was the one that you needed to get.
I was gonna say
All right.
that's a trick, right?
The Dunkelweissen and the Doppelbock both come from this place.
Munich.
Yes, ding ding. Two for 4. That's not terrible. All right, last one.
That's not what Meatloaf said, but whatever.
The Rausch Beer, or smoked beer.
Rammstein.
Bamberg. That's one of my favorites too. It has the
Not
word Bam in it.
Dusseldorf is better.
I didn't say it was better than Dusseldorf.
Do you think like the German version of Emerald Lagasse? Put a little Bamberg in it. But
Bamberg.
obviously he says that in German. They just
Obviously. All right. Well, that is all the time we have for today.
well, damn, Berg. I'm sad that it's over.
Hey. Joe has a podcast as well, which I have most of the episodes co-host,
Yeah.
called Drinking and Driving. You can find that on YouTube. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Music, all those different Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wherever
all.
there's podcasts, you can find it.
And unless you have some sort of weird place where you find them, and that's not my fault.
just
go to the regular
Then
one.
you suck. Google
I mean,
Podcasts.
or maybe I suck, but you're just cooler than I am, and
That's true.
and I can live with that. Also, I have one called Relationships that my wife and I do, and Dave's been on an episode, two episodes of that one.
Yeah, Relationships is awesome.
Relationships.
Quick little episodes, and they just talk about fun, whatever's going on. It's a great show, actually. Him and Digna. Digna has good stage presence.
That's actually, I mean, I enjoy drinking and driving. That's like my first child kind of thing, but I kind of like this one better because it's shorter, so it's easier to edit and all
it's
that
so
stuff.
stress-free.
But it's just me and friends.
Look for the episodes where they've got Dez on there, his kid. They're so freaking funny, man.
There you go.
He's amazing.
Done.
All right, so that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Please check us out at thebeerhistorypodcast.com. Go to our Discord, and you can check out what we're talking about on there. You can talk about episodes or beer or whatever you want to talk about. And that's pretty much it. If you go to our website, you can find our Facebook and Twitter and whatever the kids do these days, the Instagram and whatnot. We're on there, most likely.
And apparently he needs to get a really cool sign off because I've yet to hear like the catchphrase. So
Yeah, we don't have
Discord that to him.
If it wasn't for beer, you wouldn't be here. It's a sign off. I just stole it. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next time. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Beer History Podcast, a Hop Stuff LLC production. For more information and references, visit our website, thebeerhistorypodcast.com.